Single dad entered the wrong hospital room. The dying woman was a hidden billionaire. Single dad entered the wrong hospital room. The dying woman was a hidden billionaire. The nurse shouted his name, but it wasn't meant for him. He froze at the doorway, his tired hands gripping a small bag of medicines he could barely afford. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the weight of the past few months pressed heavily on his chest. He had come rushing into the hospital after receiving a call about his daughter's sudden collapse. But in his panic, in his fear, he had walked into the wrong room, and what he saw inside would change his life forever. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness can change lives and that even strangers can become miracles for each other, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. He stood there, unsure whether to leave or step forward. The room was dimly lit, machines quietly beeping, and on the bed lay a woman who looked like she was moments away from death. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, and yet there was something about her presence that felt powerful, almost untouchable. The man, whose name was Ayaan, had known struggle his entire life. Ever since his wife passed away 5 years ago, he had been raising his little daughter Meha alone. Every day was a battle, working 2 jobs, skipping meals so his daughter could eat, pretending everything was okay when deep inside, he was falling apart. That morning had been worse than most. Meha had fainted at school, and the call from the teacher had shattered him. He had borrowed money for a taxi, rushed to the hospital, and run through the halls without thinking. And now he was here. In the wrong room, he turned to leave quietly, not wanting to disturb the dying woman, but just as he stepped back, a faint movement stopped him. Her eyes slowly opened. They were sharp, alert, nothing like someone on the edge of death. Ayaan hesitated. Something inside him told him not to walk away. He stepped closer, unsure of what to do. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't even supposed to be there. But there was a human being in front of him, and no matter how broken his own life was, he couldn't ignore someone else's suffering. The woman looked at him with a strange calmness. There was no fear in her eyes, only quiet observation, as if she was studying him. Ayaan felt uncomfortable under her gaze. He looked down at his worn-out clothes, his trembling hands, the cheap bag of medicines he held tightly. He didn't belong here. But before he could say anything or leave, the machines beside her suddenly beeped louder. Her breathing became uneven, panic rushed through him. Without thinking, he called for help, his voice echoing in the hallway. Nurses and doctors rushed in, pushing him aside as they surrounded the bed. He stepped back into the corner, watching helplessly as they worked to stabilize her. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the beeping slowed. The tension in the room eased. The doctors exchanged glances, surprised, almost confused. One of them whispered something about how she wasn't supposed to respond this quickly. Ayaan didn't understand any of it. He just stood there, feeling like an outsider in a world that wasn't his. Soon the staff left the room, and once again silence returned. He turned to leave, but before he could take a step, a weak yet steady voice stopped him. She told him to wait. He turned back slowly, unsure if she was even speaking to him. But her eyes were fixed on him again, calm, knowing, almost. Grateful in that moment, something shifted inside him. For the first time in months, he forgot about his own pain. He stepped closer, not as a stranger, but as someone who simply cared. Days passed, and life continued to test him. Meha's condition turned out to be serious. She needed treatment that Ayaan could not afford. Every bill felt like a mountain. Every prescription felt like a cruel reminder of his helplessness. He sold what little he had. He borrowed from people who barely trusted him. He worked longer hours, sleeping only a few hours each night, but it was never enough. Yet somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, he found himself returning to that same hospital room. The woman was still there, still quiet, still mysterious. He never asked her name. He never asked why she was alone. He simply sat there sometimes, sharing the silence. And slowly, without even realizing it, that silence became a kind of comfort for her. And for him, one evening, as the sun set outside the hospital window, she finally spoke more than a few words. She asked him why he kept coming back. Ayaan didn't have a clear answer. Maybe it was because, in a world where everyone seemed too busy to care, sitting beside someone who understood pain without words felt peaceful. Maybe it was because helping her, even in the smallest way, made him feel less helpless about his own life. Or maybe deep down, he just didn't want to feel alone anymore. The woman listened to him carefully. There was no pity in her eyes, only understanding. And then one day, everything changed. Ayaan arrived at the hospital to find the room empty. His heart sank. For a moment, he thought she was gone forever. But then, a nurse approached him with a strange expression. She told him that the woman he had been visiting wasn't just any patient. She was one of the richest and most powerful businesswomen in the country, a hidden billionaire, a woman who had built an empire and yet had no one by her side when she fell. Ayaan couldn't believe it. It didn't make sense. The quiet, fragile woman he had been sitting with, the one who barely spoke, the one who looked like she was fighting her last battle, was someone the world knew as untouchable,